Production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement.
Smithville Fiber, the Giga City Company, a philanthropic community partner since 1922, and a proud supporter of numerous community organizations. More information at smithville.com.
The Al Cobain Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobain to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you. As Black History Month draws to a close, explore how African American Hoosiers shaped both the state and the country at large. Travel to Corydon's Leora Brown School, Indiana's oldest school for African American children. Discover the story of the Tuskegee Airmen as they fought for equality during World War II. And journey to the 1960s as David Baker led the way to inclusion and integration for jazz studies. Plus, welcome jazz saxophonist Bryan Thompson, an award-winning musician gaining national recognition. Meet the trailblazers that paved the path forward for African Americans in Indiana, tonight on the Weekly Special. Welcome to the Weekly Special. I'm Erica Sagone. Since 1976, every U.S. president has designated the month of February as Black History Month, a time to celebrate and remember the incredible efforts of African Americans throughout the centuries. We start our journey in Corydon, Indiana, where a one-room school still stands as a testament to the motivation of African American children during the days of segregation.
I was born here in Corydon, and my ancestors on my father's side go back to about 1815 that I can document. An elderly couple they were born in Virginia, but they relocated to North Carolina, apparently devoted their entire lives to helping enslaved people get out of slavery into free territory, so that by the time they reached Indiana Territory and Harrison County in particular, they had 100 people, slaves with them. These were slaves who were freed right here in Corydon. And my great-great-great-grandmother, whose name was Millie, was in that enclave. The fact that many people would come into a small community like this is just unbelievable, because typically when people who were enslaved were getting out of slavery, escaping, fleeing as it were, it was one person, maybe two at most, maybe three, but not 100 people. Can you imagine that? It's just hard for me to envision it. But to make that long, long journey because of their commitment to freedom is something very special. I had hoped that the welcome into this territory would have been warm, but I've learned since then that it wasn't so warm, and I have 2 letters that were written by townspeople, prominent townspeople. They sent them to the territorial governor complaining and saying, we've heard that these people are coming into our community, and what are we going to do about our daughters and our wives and our corn and our storehouses and such. So it indicated that they were not welcoming to them, but what could they do about it? This was free territory. The Mitchums followed through and gave them all their freedom. So they stayed here, and the majority died here, which says something as well. They must have been left alone to some degree, or they would not have stayed. They probably would have traveled even farther north. People of color have been in this community since about 1800, and yet it took almost 100 years to get a public school built to accommodate the needs of those families and those children. So in 1891, the school district let bids. This building was built for about $1,100, and it was an elementary and a secondary school. And the high school was discontinued in 1925 because there weren't enough students to keep it going. By 1950, They informed the school district here that the whole school had to be closed because there weren't enough students. My own sister was one of the last students to attend this school. So I had the privilege of purchasing the school, and I renamed it for my Aunt Leora because she had graduated from high school here. And then she taught here longer than any other teacher. And she loved this school. She told me that she spent most of her life here and that she just loved it. She loved her profession. And the sad thing is, when it was closed, even though she had tenure, she was not retained by the school district, and yet she should have been having tenure. So when I purchased the building, I renamed it for her to give her that honor. In doing research on the school and all that surrounded that, that sort of piqued my interest in African American history, and I still have so much to learn. It's just amazing how much there is.
The Leora Brown School was saved with the help of the Indiana Landmarks organization. To learn more or to discover other African American landmarks in your area, visit indianalandmarks.org. While segregation continued across the country, African Americans struggled to gain equality, even as heroes like the Tuskegee Airmen defended and sacrificed for their country.
If you were an African American soldier in World War II, you were facing a fight on two fronts. You were facing a fight against fascism in Europe and against the Japanese in the Pacific, but you were also fighting discrimination back home.
In 1943, the U.S. military developed new opportunities for African American soldiers to train as fighter pilots at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. Within months, black fighter pilots had overcome segregation at home in order to learn to escort bombers on many successful runs through war-torn regions of Europe. Their success inspired government support and encouraged the military to form a squadron of black bomber pilots.
The 477 Bombardment Group was formed in order for African American pilots and crew members to fly medium bombers.
The group was stationed for training at Freeman Field in Seymour, Indiana, in the spring of 1945. It was during this training that the black officers and men of the 477th experienced segregation on the military base.
Officers' clubs were segregated. They were not allowed to go into and enjoy the facilities of the white officers' club. This flew in the face of War Department regulations at that time that said that all recreational facilities should be available regardless of race.
On April 5th and 6th, 1945, the men of the 477th, determined to expose the discriminatory practices at Freeman Field, staged a peaceful protest, with small groups of black officers approaching the club, 8, 10, 12 men at a time, and attempted to enter the club.
During this two-day period, a total of 61 men of the 477th approached the Officers Club, were turned away, and were eventually arrested and put in their quarters. They could be, of course, charged with the ultimate crime in the military of mutiny, and there were very grave consequences if they were eventually court-martialed, convicted. They could face even the death penalty. So what they were doing was risking their own lives for many of them in standing up against what they saw as an unfair situation at Freeman Field.
The base commander demanded that every officer of the 477th sign a form that would recognize and legalize the segregated practices on the base. When every black officer refused to sign, all 101 officers and men of the 477th were arrested, a move that sent a shockwave through the American military and U.S. society as a whole.
Eventually, African American leaders, newspapers, members of Congress get wind of this, There's a protest to the War Department, and finally Chief of Staff General George C. Marshall frees the 101 men from the 477th. And just a few years after the end of the war, 1948, President Truman made the very courageous decision to fully integrate the armed forces. And I think the pilots of the 477th could look to their action as maybe helping pave the way for that executive order. And it was kind of serve as almost this protest as a training ground for what came next, for the growth of civil rights and the development of equal opportunity in the United States after the war ended.
Columbus's Atterbury-Bacalar Air Museum has an extraordinary exhibit dedicated to the Tuskegee Airmen and their historic stand during World War II. Learn more at atterbury-bacalar-airmuseum.org. Well, as the country rebounded after World War II, the civil rights movement gained power and momentum, with leaders from every genre battling to break down barriers in their communities.
The dawn of the 1960s was ripe for revolution. The civil rights movement sparked debate about cultural divide, and in towns across America, integration took hold. For Indiana Avenue, the epicenter of Indianapolis's jazz scene, the end of forced segregation led to downtown expansion, and the once dynamic corridor disappeared. Yet 60 miles south, something was stirring at Indiana University's School of Music. In the 1950s, students and musicians such as David Baker, Al Cobine, and Jerry Coker were playing jazz around town and around campus. The music threatened to infiltrate the hollowed classical-only halls of the school. Such was the sentiment that anecdotes describe students being thrown out of practice rooms for daring to play jazz. The changing social and political climate of the 1960s, however, provided an unexpected opening to bring jazz from the hidden campus corners to the IU music halls. It was the summer of 1963 when 250,000 civil rights supporters gathered at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, listening to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dream of a better world. Within the decade, he would be dead. But his legacy would send a ripple that would stretch from D.C. to Bloomington. As David Baker explains, all of a sudden there was this interest in diversity at the degree level. School was just beginning to be integrated, and so consequently people became very interested in having some awareness of who black people were. The jazz history courses were beginning to gain some credibility. Increased interest meant newfound support, and by 1968, Indiana University formed one of the first jazz degree programs in the country. All that the university needed was a leader, and for that, they turned to a man rooted in Indiana jazz, David Baker. Born in Indianapolis in 1931, Baker grew up along Indiana Avenue at a time when the community still buzzed to the beats of jazz music. At Crispus Attucks High School, Baker discovered his love for Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, as well as his natural talent for trombone. Yet it was outside the classroom walls where Baker honed his craft. As he explains, education took place in the street. We'd go around to the clubs listening and trying to get in. Because we weren't old enough, we'd put on our berets and our horned-rimmed glasses, draw mustaches on our upper lips, and hope it didn't rain. After years playing trombone with his group, the Dave Baker Quartet, Baker left the Avenue for the academic world of Indiana University, where he graduated with a master's degree in music in 1954. Over the next decade, he toured with such legends as George Russell and Quincy Jones. A devastating car accident, however, dramatically altered Baker's career. After lingering injuries forced him to abandon his trombone, he sought a new musical outlet. The choice was unlikely, especially for a jazz musician: the cello. Yet his new instrument inspired new musical paths, shifting his focus from performance to composition and education. By 1966, Baker returned to Indiana University to complete his doctoral studies. The timing was synchronistic. Jerry Coker, who played an instrumental role in the birth of jazz education at Indiana University, sought a successor to lead the newly formed jazz program. Baker's unique combination of street credibility and formal education made him the perfect candidate. For the next 10 years, Baker acted as sole educator, establishing fundamental components that would lead to the program's overwhelming success. First, he devised a diverse course offering that extended beyond customary music ensembles. Students could choose classes in such subjects as jazz history, jazz analysis, and the evolution of music. In addition, through his compositions, Baker helped bridge the gap between jazz and classical traditions, writing pieces that merged both genres in a form called third stream, strengthening his relationship with classical music faculty members. Finally, in a field where musical evolution occurs at lightning speed, he created a program that is able to adapt quickly. As Baker explains, we've had to keep our ears to the ground because it's been dictated by what the students need, but also by looking backwards and telling them, this is your legacy, but you can't stop here. The program's legacy hasn't stopped either. Today, the IU Jazz Studies program remains one of the most renowned in the world, producing a number of notable jazz musicians, as well as helping to create an enduring audience for the music. And it is a jazz legacy that is still being written. From the echoes of Indiana Avenue to the bustle of the Bloomington campus today, on the same worn paths, on the same spooning walls where legend says Hoagy Carmichael first penned Stardust, a new young jazz musician might stop, listen, and perhaps, like Carmichael, be inspired by the Indiana town around him.
To learn more about David Baker or other fantastic Hoosier jazz musicians, visit WFIU's Nightlights program page, indianapublicmedia.org/nightlights. And be sure to tune in for our upcoming Jazz History series. We'll be taking a deep dive into the history of Indiana Avenue and its lasting effect on jazz, both past and present. Well, as a graduate of IU's Jazz Studies program, Bryan Thompson is a shining example of how encouragement can transform passion into achievement.
I started playing the saxophone when I was 9 years old. My aunt would play smooth jazz all the time on the radio. I was like, that's what I want to do. I just want to play whatever that instrument is that's leading all the time, and it was the saxophone. And from there, music became a part of me. It kind of became like the oxygen. It just grew into my passion and ultimately my career. I took about 6 months worth of lessons, and then it was like off with the wind. Theory, lessons, and technical stuff can all be taught. But as far as making someone creative and teaching them passion, that can't be taught. What drew me to the saxophone was a few things. I loved the way it sounded. I liked its soul. When I got older, I started getting inspired by actual musicians. Kenny G was one of my favorites. A saxophonist that has his type of success. I was like, man, I gotta be something like him someday. You know, you wanna shoot for the stars. One of my favorite places to perform here was actually when I played for Kenny G. That, to me, was probably one of my favorite performances ever, playing for him. I love old school. I'm essentially taking that old school sound of the saxophone that I like and hear and combining it with the new sounds that everyone likes to hear. Sometimes you have to take what's already been done and remake it for the modern ear. So that's what I like to do. Social media has been one of the driving forces in the success that I've had. It all started when I did a cover of a song called Controlla by Drake. Video got 2.1 million views. I posted another video, Versace on the Floor, 3.4 million views. And then I posted another one, Beauty and the Beast, 2.1 million views. So many people see the success that they see online. I don't even think I've started yet. Success is a continuum. It's never ending. Always be content, but never be satisfied. Because if you're satisfied, then that means you don't grow. Everybody is different. Now, I'm not completely deaf, but I have 10% hearing in my right ear. Having a hearing impairment in one ear is half the battle that's gone. But it's never hindered me. Nothing can stop you. Whether you're deaf, blind, or you can't walk, it doesn't have to stop you. keep going. As a saxophonist, I'm not typically the eye of the industry. You're a saxophonist, where do you put us? I'm trying to let the world know there are multiple places, but you have to put us there. Give us a chance. So I'm trying to be that beacon and try and pave the way for all future saxophonists. We can do this. There's no new contemporary saxophonist that is out in the industry right now. So I'm just like, I got this, I can do this. It feels amazing, honestly, because you feel like you're reintroducing something. I want to inspire people. I want you to realize that you only live this one life. That's the purpose, I think, of life, is for you to give. And I think music is my way of giving to people.
And now, Bryan Thompson. more about Bryan's musical journey or to get a listing of his upcoming performances, visit bthompsonmusic.com. Well, that's all the time that we have for tonight. We hope you've been inspired to take an opportunity to learn more about the African American leaders in your own community. Once more before we go, Bryan Thompson. Good night. Production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement.
Smithville Fiber, the Giga City Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
The Al Cobine Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobine to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you.